Chapter 6. The following day, the whole town was shocked by the terrible news of the doctor's murder. The news flew from man to man, from group to group, from house to house. Of course, the schoolteacher gave a holiday for that afternoon. A knife covered in blood had been found near the murdered man, and somebody remembered that it belonged to Muff Potter. Another person saw Potter washing himself in the river at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. He started running as soon as he was noticed. The sheriff sent his men to catch the murderer. The people started to gather in the graveyard. Tom joined the procession, not because he had wanted to go there, but because some awful force drew him there. When he saw the place, it seemed to him an age since he was there before. Somebody touched his arm. He turned, and his eyes met Huckleberry's. Then both looked elsewhere at once, and wondered if anybody had noticed anything. But everybody was talking about the murder. Then Tom froze. He saw the cruel face of Injun Joe. At this moment the crowd began to move, and voices shouted, "It's him! It's him!" Who?" from 20 voices. "Muff Potter! Look, he's here! Don't let him get away!" People in the branches of the trees over Tom's head said he wasn't trying to get away. The crowd parted, and the sheriff came through, leading Potter by the arm. The poor fellow's face showed fear. When he stood before the murdered man, he put his face in his hands and burst into tears. "I didn't do it, friends," he sobbed. "I never did it." "Who has accused you?" shouted a voice. These words had their effect. Potter looked around with a sad hopelessness in his eyes. He saw Injun Joe and said, "Oh, Joe, you promised me you'd never—" "Is that your knife?" asked the sheriff. Potter said, "Tell them, Joe, it's no use anymore." And Injun Joe described how Muff Potter had murdered Dr. Robinson. Huckleberry and Tom were convinced now that this cruel liar had sold himself to the devil, and he could easily murder them for telling the truth. So the boys decided to watch Injun Joe whenever they had a chance. Tom's secret disturbed his sleep for as much as a week after this, and at breakfast one morning, Sid said, "Tom, you talk in your sleep so much that I can't sleep half the time." "It's a bad sign," said Aunt Polly. "What's the matter, Tom?" "Nothing." But the boy's hand shook so that he spilled his coffee. "Last night you said, 'It's blood, it's blood, that's what it is,'" Sid said. "You said that again and again. And you said, 'Don't torment me so, I'll tell.'" "Tell what? What is it you'll tell?" Everything was swimming before Tom. Luckily, Aunt Polly helped him without knowing it. She said, "It's that awful murder. I dream about it most every night myself." Every day or two, Tom went to the little jail window and gave to the murderer small gifts he could get. These things greatly helped to ease his conscience. Then Tom started to worry about another trouble. Becky Thatcher had stopped coming to school. Tom started to come to her father's house at night, feeling very unhappy. She was ill. What if she dies? He was no longer interested in walks and wars. Tom's aunt was worried about his health. She began to try all possible medicines on him. She was one of those people who were fond of medicines. When something fresh in this line came out, she tried it right away. Not on herself, She was never sick, but on anybody else. The water treatment was new then, and Aunt Polly decided to use opportunity to try it. She started with cold showers. After the shower, she rubbed him with a towel, then she rolled him up in a wet sheet and put him under blankets. But cold showers didn't help Tom. The boy became more and more sad and pale. She added hot baths and hot showers. The boy remained unhappy. She added an oatmeal diet. Every day, she also made Tom drink cups of different medicines. Finally, the aunt heard about a tonic called painkiller. She ordered a lot at once. She tasted it and liked it. It was simply fire. She stopped the water treatment and everything else. She gave Tom some painkiller and watched what would happen to Tom. And the painkiller brought peace to her soul. It made the boy active and happy again. Tom felt that it was time to wake up. This sort of life might be romantic enough, but he was getting tired of it. So he pretended that he was fond of the painkiller. He asked for it so often that his aunt finally told him to help himself. She watched the bottle from time to time and found that there was less medicine there than before. But she couldn't imagine that the boy was pouring the painkiller on the floor in the sitting room with a crack in it. One day, Tom was doing this operation when his aunt's yellow cat came up to him, looking at the bottle with interest. Tom said, "Don't ask for it unless you want it, Peter." But Peter showed that he did want it. "Are you sure?" Peter was sure. "All right, if you ask for it, I'll give it to you, because I have enough for everyone. But if you don't like it, you mustn't blame anybody but yourself." Peter agreed with the boy. So Tom made the cat open his mouth and poured down some painkiller. Peter jumped in the air and then started to run round and round the room with his head over his shoulder like mad. Then he went running around the house with a loud noise. Aunt Polly entered the house in time to see him make a few figures in the air, give his final cry, and jump down through the open window, carrying the flower pots with him. The old lady stood shocked, looking over her glasses. Tom lay on the floor, laughing. "Tom, what happened to that cat?" "I don't know, Aunt," said the boy. "I never saw anything like it. What made him do this?" "I don't know, Aunt Polly. Cats always do this when they're having a good time." "They do they?" There was something in her voice that Tom didn't like. "Yes, Aunt. That is, I believe they do." "You do?" "Yes, Aunt." The old lady was bending down. Tom was watching her with interest, but he saw her plan too late. The teaspoon lay under the bed. Aunt Polly took it, held it up. Tom dropped his eyes. Aunt Polly raised him as usually by his ear. "Why did you do it to that poor cat?" "I did it because I feel sorry for him, because he hasn't any aunt." "Hasn't any aunt? What's that got to do with it?" "Because he has no aunt who can burn him out herself." Aunt Polly suddenly felt remorse. She realized that what was cruelty to a cat might be cruelty to a boy, too. She felt sorry. Tears appeared in her eyes, and she put her hand on Tom's head and said, "I wanted to help you, Tom. And Tom, it did do you good." Tom looked at her seriously. I know you wanted to help me, Auntie, and so I wanted to help Peter. It did him good, too. I've never seen him run around. Oh, enough of that. Stop, Tom. Before I get angry with you again. And try to be a good boy, please. And you needn't take any more medicine. That day, Tom came to school early. Other children noticed that this strange thing happened every day, and now he stood near the gate of the schoolyard instead of playing with his friends. He was sick, he said, and he looked it. He tried to seem to be looking everywhere, but where he really was looking, down the road. Then Jeff Thatcher came, and Tom's face looked happy. Tom talked to him for some time, giving him an opportunity to say about Becky. But the boy didn't understand what Tom needed. Tom watched and watched, hoping to see Becky. Finally, the girls stopped coming through the gate. Tom was unhappy again. He entered the empty class and sat down. Then one more dress passed through the gate, and Tom's heart began singing. The next minute, he was out and shouting, laughing, running together with the boys, jumping over the fence at the risk of his life, standing on his head, doing all the heroic things he could think of, and trying to see if Becky Thatcher was noticing. But she didn't seem to be interested in it all. She never looked. Could it be possible that she didn't know that he was there? He moved to her. He took a boy's hat, threw it to the roof of the school, burst through a group of boys, and fell under Becky's nose. And she turned with her nose in the air, and he heard her say, "My, some people think they're very smart, always showing off." Tom's cheeks burned. He got up and went off, looking very sad.